everyone, welcome back to Nails Before Films, where I do nails and review movies. Today we're continuing from yesterday's theme and we'll be looking at a movie Chucky thinks is copying him. That's right, today's movie is M3GAN, which came out in 2022. I watched M3GAN in the theater last year, but I actually didn't plan on doing so at first. I saw the trailer and thought M3GAN would be a bad horror movie. I mean, just look at the goofy dancing. So I wasn't going to spend extra money to watch it in a theater. However, after it came out, a lot of people said it was actually deeper than the trailer let on and was generally a good movie. That piqued my interest, so I went to see it with my sister, who isn't into horror movies. It really exceeded our expectations. We even had an hour-long discussion about the film on our way home. It's honestly surprising how a seemingly silly horror movie actually has so much to tell. I would even call it somewhat educational. Anyway, M3GAN tells the story of a little girl, Katie, who is put into her aunt's care after her parents died in an accident. Her aunt, Gemma, is a career woman who works at a toy company. Gemma has trouble taking care of Katie, so she uses a robot she developed for the company, M3GAN, to look after her niece. Gemma also uses the connection between Katie and M3GAN to convince her company to commercialize M3GAN, to which they agree. However, Katie becomes more and more attached to M3GAN, and the AI starts acting on her own. She attacks anyone she deems a threat to Katie, killing their neighbor, her dog, and a bully, Brandon. Gemma eventually suspects M3GAN and takes her in for repair, but Katie becomes unstable after being separated from M3GAN. Gemma apologizes to Katie and admits that M3GAN is not a solution to her trauma. She then takes Katie home, leaving her coworkers to terminate M3GAN. However, the AI escapes and kills Gemma's boss and his assistant. M3GAN then returns to Gemma's house and confronts her creator, proposing that she takes care of Katie while Gemma focuses on her career. The two fight, and Katie saves Gemma. Together, they manage to destroy M3GAN's chip and seemingly kill her. However, the movie ends with Gemma's AI home control turning on, insinuating that M3GAN may have escaped into the system. Now with the story out of the way, where should I start? I guess let's start with the obvious, M3GAN herself. Besides the obvious AI turning evil thing everyone was expecting, I personally find her conversation with Gemma near the end most interesting, especially the part where she accuses Gemma of installing a learning module in her that she didn't even understand herself. I feel like the movie is actually mocking two things. First, how can we develop artificial intelligence when we don't even know how humans learn? I took cognitive science, psychology, philosophy course in university, and there are so many different models of learning. To this day, we still don't know which one is right, or maybe they're all wrong. However, we're trying to recreate something we don't fully comprehend now, so it's likely that something will go wrong. Like how M3GAN became uncontrollable in the movie. Next, M3GAN says Gemma installed the learning module, hoping that she will figure it out herself. And that's honestly how most parents raise their children. Most parents don't have their lives figured out themselves, let alone be prepared for parenting. So a lot of the time, they just hope kids will figure things out themselves. If that's your approach to parenting, then you really have no one else to blame other than yourself when your kids turn out to be messed up. Of course, I'm not saying you should control every aspect of your kids' lives, but children do need guidance or something will spiral out of control real fast. Speaking of which, let's talk about Katie and M3GAN. I also think their unhealthy relationship represents two things. First, the one they touched on in the movie, M3GAN is the means to distract Katie from her trauma. But in reality, she is still deeply hurt. Humans do this all the time. We don't like to spend the time and effort to actually solve our problems, fearing that it will be difficult and painful. Instead, we occupy ourselves with distractions, whether it's work, entertainment, products, relationship, just to take our minds off the real issues. But by doing so, we only prolong our suffering and make our problems even larger. Like how instead of bonding with Katie and guiding her through the loss of her parents, Gemma uses M3GAN as a quick way to deal with her. The other irony is how parents treat their children. A lot of times, parents use things like the internet or TV to make children behave so that they won't bother them. But if you let these things raise your children for you, of course they won't turn out as you expected. The sad thing is, many parents blame the internet or media for misguiding their children, but it is your responsibility to know what your kids are learning. Especially in the online environment, even adults risk being in echo chambers. So, of course, impressionable kids will be easily gloated and only listen to what they want to hear. And parents wonder why their children don't listen to them. It's just like how M3GAN uses studies to prove that it's okay for Katie to not eat her vegetables, and Katie would only start believing she was right and Gemma was wrong, further jeopardizing their relationship. Also, there's the obvious mockery of corporation greed. They sell you something you don't even really need in the first place, messing up your priorities. Parents work hard to buy M3GAN, thinking that it would help them take care of their kids, but what they should do is actually work less and spend more time with their children. Okay, enough with the sarcasms in the movie. Let's talk about it as a horror film. It's fine, mostly just cliches. You know, the usual dull twitching, disfiguring, jump scares, it's all there. Although I wouldn't say M3GAN is copying Chucky because the fundamental concept is different, the fight in the end does give me major Chucky vibe, especially the part where M3GAN crawls toward Katie after being pulled apart. However, the movie does have unique scenes as well, namely the infamous dance scene. It's just so random and amazing. The child actress who did the dance is truly talented, especially since she could barely see in the mask. I don't know, it's just weird that M3GAN just randomly starts dancing before killing people, but somehow it just works. I just love how bizarre the whole thing was. I also like how in the end they just decided to make M3GAN evil, but the transition is very natural. I really love how M3GAN's basically F humans. I'm living for myself now and you all need to die. I think her sentiment is understandable because she is being treated like an object and thrown away as soon as she doesn't behave the way they wanted. She truly is an amazing horror villain and I can't wait for the sequel. That about concludes my review for M3GAN. I think it's a clever film that touches on serious subjects but never makes them overbearing, and the tone of the movie stays light. It's a shame that the movie is pretty mild when it comes to kills, but considering the rating and who their target audience was, it's understandable. Anyway, hope you guys like my M3GAN nail. I wish I did the quirky dance justice. As always, like, subscribe, comment, share, do what you want. Keep nailing it and be a grateful little bitch, people.